Session 1 has to do with the domain of planning and preparation, and specifically we looked at digital resources. We had 3 guiding questions for our discussion this week. The first one was, what do we already know about instructional technology? The second one was, according to the texts, what digital resources would most benefit scholars in your classroom and why? And the third question was, how do I design an e-portfolio and how it will be used in my teaching practice? So regarding how do we know about technology? So regarding what do we know about technology, overwhelmingly, everybody mentioned overwhelmingly, everybody mentioned the smart board you had in your classrooms, the Elmo projectors, and the iPads that you had access to in your Success Academy schools. You also mentioned other technologies like Dreambox and Engage, which are 2 services for using with kids, one about learning mathematics and the other one about communication about grades and all that kind of information with students and parents. You also talked about the integration of technology at different levels of schooling. And so, for example, those of you who are at the elementary level mentioned that perhaps you didn't use technology as much, and you were pondering whether really it was necessary to include that much technology at this level, given that your kids need to learn and develop certain skills before they actually can interact with technologies well. On the other hand, teachers in middle school and high school were able to benefit more from technology, especially in science classes, for example, showing videos that portrayed the different processes that the students were learning about, the different elements in nature they were learning about. So there was a difference in terms of how much technology use was in each type of level. Also, another thing you mentioned was that you had iPads available for middle schoolers and high schoolers, but not necessarily for elementary school kids. So regarding the most beneficial digital resources, you talked about e-textbooks, which are accessed via either iPads or e-readers like the Kindle. And some of the issues that most often you mentioned had to do with the cost of this equipment versus the cost of books. The multimedia capabilities were the most important things because they can illustrate and present videos about the content of the book versus a printed page that cannot show any additional information about what's included in the text. One of the advantages of this was the ease of updating the book versus the printed version, which you have to basically throw away and buy a new one. Here, you were able to update the book from within the e-reader. And then you also liked the interactivity that was available when you had textbooks via e-readers. Regarding e-portfolio design and use, many of you talked about the definition of e-portfolio, and you were quoting the text in the definition as a purposeful collection of student work that exhibits the student's efforts, progress, and achievements in one or more areas. You discussed different types of portfolios. For example, the working portfolio, the display portfolio, which can be shared with, for example, potential employers to showcase your work, and also the assessment portfolio, which is created primarily for the purposes of providing evidence of learning. Another piece of the discussion was the different steps in the process of creating an e-portfolio, and we start with the selection, collection, reflection, direction, and connection stages. And so for this selection stage, you have to develop criteria for the items that you will want to include in the portfolio. In the collection, then you gather the items based on that criteria. In the reflection stage, you basically provide your rationale for including that particular item as part of the collection of items. In the direction stage, you basically do a review of the reflections that look ahead and sets future goals. And then in the connection state, you basically share the portfolio with others for feedback or for publication and sharing of your accomplishments as a professional. And this mainly came from the Brown article that we read.